Yeah. All right. A couple other names I want to throw at you. Drew Valentine at Loyola. Is Borzello, where do you stand on him? And is this something where he is going to end up being in the? It feels like he hasn't really been in the mix for a lot of high major openings. He's still young. They didn't have a great year 2 years ago. Where do you stand on him?
I mean, I think he's assuming they have a good year this year. They were good last year. They were good his first year after he took over from Porter Moser. It's logical that he's going to be in the mix for big time jobs. I mean, he is dynamic and he has experience fundraising. That's another thing about some of the low major guys is they haven't had to raise NIL or anything like that at a high level. But Drew Valentine to me, assuming they have another good year, he's got the name. He's got the pedigree. He's going to get calls for Power Five jobs and open. I mean, we talked about Tom Izzo potentially retiring at some point in the next couple of years. He's going to be very high on that list as somebody to call. It's it's logical to think in the next 3 years he'll be at the Power Five level, if not in the next 6 months.
Yeah, a couple things that we didn't hit on, by the way, when we're talking about Will Wade. If Penny doesn't make it at Memphis, that's a name they need to look at, right? Like we all know that he should be number one on their list. Chris Mack's a name that we haven't mentioned yet. And the bottom line is the reason he couldn't get a high major last year was because he was out for 2 years. And a lot of people are like, does he want it? Does he want back in? I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to take a chance on him. Well, obviously, Charleston's the best job in the CAA. They're right there with Towson, 1A and 1B. If he wins the league or gets to the NCAA tournament, I think he'll answer some of those questions, right, that plagued him with ADs. And I think he'll be right there in the mix for a high major job. Again, Bucky McMillan. Again, I mentioned him before at Sanford. They're going to be good again. And there's a bunch of jobs that everybody said about Bucky, well, he's only going to take a job in the state of Alabama. Well, no, because Bruce Pearl's at Auburn and Nate Oates is at Alabama. He's not dumb enough to just say,
for the record, you say everybody says Bucky McMillan is only going to take it. The only person I've ever heard that from is you. So no, like you say everybody says it.
I talked to more than 3 people.
You say that over and over and over.
I guess his Borzello's heard that too because he actually talks to other people.
I have. I mean, I think he has cast his net a little wider than that. But I mean,
think about it now.
If Andy Kennedy got a better job, if he gets there, he could stay in the state. Bucky McMillan could get UAB, boom, and then those people are proven right. But I'm with you. I think he'll go outside the state.
I mean, think about it. Florida State likely opens, I would think, after this year. That's one. We've talked about Georgia. We've talked about LSU. There's some jobs that are in his comfort zone that he would do well at with his style.
To LSU. Boom. Make it happen.
Who?
Will Wade back to LSU.
No, we don't. Rob and I don't think that's going to happen.
That does not seem likely. You
what
did
about
mention
Richard Pitino? Hey,
well,
hold on.
Richard
Pitino.
You mentioned Andy Kennedy. We talked a little bit about Chris Mack, Richard Pitino as well. You got 3 guys there that have been at the high major level and lost their jobs at the high major level.
Bryce Drew is another one in that category.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah, Bryce Drew. Like, what did they have to like? At what point do you go back to them, knowing that they did not have success already, or do you look at somebody like, I don't know, like a Nico Medved you mentioned, or like a Ryan Odom, or a Dustin Kearns, or a Takayo Siddle, or some of these other guys that we've seen have that success, and see if you can give them their shot. Like, how do you part Eric Henderson? How do you parse through that thought process, Goodman, if you're an AD?
I think it generally comes down to what you had and didn't work. You're going to go the other way. That's generally the way it happens with these ADs, right? Like if they went with an assistant, a high-level assistant as a mid-major AD, they're then going to try to find some recirculated head coach the next time around if it didn't work. Unfortunately, that's the way they work. And, again, where I stand with some of these search firms. I don't think most of them are very good in terms of doing their due diligence and understanding what works out there. But I think you've got to still nowadays, and Borzello started with this in this show, Nowadays, the priority isn't just finding a great coach and X's and O's guy. You better find a guy who can go out and sell the program and sell himself to boosters and get that NIL, because if you don't have it, I don't care how good a coach you are. I mean, again, you can do it on a one-off. Josh Schertz did it last year for what, $97,000 total NIL package, and almost took Indiana State to the NCAA tournament. But it's really hard to maintain that with that type of budget. So you better get a guy that does, like I talked about earlier, that is able to go out in the community and has some shit to him that way and can sell.
Yep.